Okay, picture this for a second. Your house, right? And there's this voice, seemingly out of nowhere. But it's not just noise, it's talking. It knows things, predicts stuff.
Uh-huh.
And then objects start flying. You're getting scratched, pinched by something you can't even see. That's basically the nightmare the Bell family lived through in Tennessee way back in the early 1800s.
It's the core of the Bell Witch legend, yeah.
Uh-huh.
A story so intense, this entity was actually blamed for causing the death of John Bell, the father.
Exactly. So today we're diving deep into that. We're heading back, metaphorically speaking, to Robertson County, Tennessee, between about 1817 and 1821.
It's one of America's most famous ghost stories, maybe the most famous from that era.
Totally. And you've brought some great sources for us to dig into. We've got the Wikipedia breakdown timeline, people involved, different takes on it all.
Right, and there's also a nice, concise piece from the Tennessee State Museum's Junior Curators blog. Good overview.
And a summary outline, too, just hitting the main story beats. So our mission, really, is to sift through all this, pull out the key details, the compelling bits, and give you a solid grasp of this whole Bell Witch legend and why people are still talking about it. Ready to jump in?
Let's do it. So the setting is crucial here. We're talking early 19th century, near what's now Adams, Tennessee. The Bell family farm was along the Red River, pretty remote back then.
Frontier life, basically. And things started getting weird around 1817, apparently.
That seems to be the starting point, yeah. John Bell himself, the father, he saw this, well, he described it strangely. Either a dog-like thing or maybe a dog with a rabbit's head.
A dog with a rabbit's head. Okay, that's specific.
Right. And he shot at it.
Yeah.
And it just vanished. Then, not long after, his son Drew sees this enormous bird, like extraordinary size.
And the daughter, Betsy?
Betsy saw a girl, apparently in a green dress, just swinging from an oak tree branch. And Dean, who was enslaved by the family, he reported being followed by this big black dog.
So a whole series of these strange, almost unrelated sightings at first? Like little warnings?
Could be interpreted that way. They were weird, but maybe dismissible individually at first. But then things moved inside the house.
Okay, this is where it ramps up.
Yeah, they started hearing knocking. Loud knocks on doors, on the walls. Sounds like gnawing on the beds, like huge racks or something.
Oh.
And sounds of invisible dogs fighting inside the house. Chains being dragged across the floor. And around this time, John Bell Sr. started having trouble with his mouth, like a paralysis setting in.
That's serious. And it didn't stop there, did it? It got physical.
Oh, yeah. Much more aggressive. People sleeping, and their sheets would just be yanked off the beds.
Oh.
And then direct physical contact.
Yeah.
Hair pulling, scratching, pinching. Some reports even say they were stuck with pins.
Ouch. And Betsy, the daughter we mentioned, she got the worst of it.
She seemed to be the main focus, yes. Especially for these more violent physical attacks. It was terrifying for the whole family, obviously.
I can only imagine. So what do you do? Who do you turn to back then?
Well, they confided in a family friend, James Johnston. He was trusted. He actually stayed the night to see for himself.
Brave man. Did he experience it?
He did. He witnessed the phenomena firsthand, and the next morning, he gave them his verdict. He said, pretty definitively, it's a spirit, just like in the Bible.
Okay, so that frames it. Suddenly, it's not just weird happenings, it's supernatural, religious even.
Exactly. And that's when word really started to spread. People started coming from all over, wanting to witness this spirit or witch.
And then started talking.
That's the next major escalation. Someone finally asked it directly, who are you? What do you want?
And it answered.
It did. Reportedly, a faint voice at first said something like, I am a spirit. I was once very happy, but have been disturbed.
Chilling. Just chilling. Did it give a name?
Eventually, yeah. It started identifying as Kate, supposedly after a local woman the Bells might have had dealings with, Kate Batts, who some suspected of witchcraft. The spirit seemed to respond when called Kate.
So they started calling it Kate. And why was it there? Why disturbed?
It gave a few reasons, apparently. One of the main ones was that the Bells had supposedly disturbed a Native American burial ground on their property.
Ah, a classic haunting trope, but maybe based in some reality there.
Possibly. It even led them on this wild goose chase for buried treasure connected to that idea.
Yeah.
Drew Bell and another man, Bennett Porter, they actually dug around looking for it based on what Kate told them. Found nothing, though.
So Kate was interactive, telling them things, making claims. What about this knowledge it supposedly had? The sermons.
Right, this is one of the most baffling parts. The claim is Kate could repeat sermons word for word.
Okay.
Sermons given that same day at the same time, but in churches 13 miles apart.
13 miles! How's that even possible back then? No phones, no radio.
Exactly. That's what made it so astonishing. It also supposedly knew the Bible inside and out, loved getting into religious arguments, and it knew local gossip, stuff happening in other houses.
Like it could travel, leave the Bell House and come back.
That was the implication, yeah. It seemed to gather information from elsewhere. It suggested a level of intelligence and awareness far beyond just, bangs and knocks.
Did anyone try to test it? To verify these abilities?
They did. James Johnston's son, John Johnston, came up with a clever test. He knew his step-grandmother lived way over in North Carolina and spoke with a particular Dutch dialect.
Okay.
So he asked Kate, what would my step-grandmother say if she thought her enslaved workers did something wrong? And supposedly, Kate answered perfectly, mimicking her accent and using her exact phrase, "Hut-tut, what has happened now?"
No way. Really?
That's the story. And there was another one, an English visitor. He was skeptical, apparently. Kate supposedly not only mimicked his family members back in England, but contacted them somehow. His parents later reported hearing his voice calling out to them across the ocean.
Okay, that's deeply unsettling. So this visitor left convinced.
Apparently so. These accounts, if true, are just mind-boggling. They suggest abilities that are hard to explain away easily, raises big questions about where these stories came from.
But it wasn't all just terrifying power displays, right? You mentioned Lucy Bell, the mother.
Correct. Kate showed a completely different side to Lucy Bell. Called her the most perfect woman to walk the earth, supposedly.
Wow, high praise from a haunting entity.
Right, and it would reportedly bring her fresh fruit, sing hymns to her. Showed respect to John Bell Jr. as well, the son.
So selective, not just pure evil.
Very selective.
Right.
Which makes it even stranger, doesn't it? Because its attitude towards John Bell Sr., the father, was the complete opposite. Pure hostility.
Old Jack, it called him.
Yeah, referred to him as Old Jack, cursed him, threatened him constantly, openly stated it intended to kill him. And he suffered various physical problems that were attributed to Kate's influence.
So kind to the wife, hated the husband. That feels personal.
It does suggest some kind of awareness or agenda, or maybe it reflected tensions already present, who knows. But the hostility towards John Sr. is central to the legend.
And it even interfered with Betsy's life, her engagement.
It did. Betsy was engaged to a local man, Joshua Gardner. Kate apparently made it very clear it did not approve of this match.
How? Just saying things.
Saying things, tormenting them, making life miserable around the engagement. And it worked. Betsy eventually broke off the engagement in 1821, supposedly because Kate just wouldn't let up.
Imagine that. A ghost breaking up your engagement.
It adds another layer to the control Kate seemed to exert.
So this all builds towards John Bell Sr.'s death in 1820. How did that happen? The legend says Kate killed him.
That's the climax of the story, yes. The most common version is that he was poisoned by the witch. There's an account mentioning a strange vial of liquid found after he became violently ill.
A vial?
Yeah, supposedly found near his sickbed. They tested it on a cat, and the cat died almost instantly. Kate apparently then claimed responsibility, saying she gave it to old Jack while he slept.
Good Lord. Did everyone believe that?
Well, other accounts, like the one attributed to Richard Williams Bell in Ingram's book, suggest John Sr. was already quite ill. But even that version leans towards poisoning being the final cause. Either way, the witch is implicated.
And the final awful detail, singing at his funeral.
Yeah. Reportedly sang bawdy-drinking songs while the family mourned. Just incredibly cruel and bizarre.
So after the death, did Kate just leave?
Kate announced it was leaving, yes. But not forever. It promised to return in 7 years.
7 years, so around 1828.
Exactly. And according to the stories, it did come back in 1828. Showed up again, interacting mainly with Lucy and her sons, Richard and Joel. Similar phenomena reported.
But the family reacted differently this time.
Apparently, they decided not to engage with it, not to encourage it. And after a while, it supposedly left again, maybe for good that time.
This idea of it promising to return, it keeps the story going, doesn't it? Makes it feel less like a closed chapter.
Definitely. It adds to the enduring mystery and the sense that this thing had its own timeline, its own plans.
Okay, so how did this story get passed down? You mentioned Martin V. Ingram's book from 1894, An Authenticated History of the Bell Witch. That sounds pretty definitive.
It sounds definitive, and it's hugely important because it's really the first comprehensive published account. It gathered lots of oral traditions and testimonies, supposedly from people who were there or knew the family. Ingram was a newspaper editor, so he knew how to craft a story.
And the people in it were real.
Yes. The main characters, the Bells, the Johnstons, They were actual historical figures in Robertson County. That lends it an air of authenticity.
But there's always a but, isn't there?
There is. Its accuracy is heavily debated today. Many skeptics look at it and say, okay, this reads more like historical fiction, or even that Ingram might have fabricated parts of it for a good story.
Or maybe just reflecting what people believed back then.
That's the other view, that it's a valuable snapshot of 19th century folklore and beliefs in that region, even if not every detail is literal fact. It captures the story as it was being told decades later.
Were there any earlier mentions before Ingram's book?
There were. A military officer, John R. Bell, no relation, kept a journal during an expedition in 1820. He passed through that area.
And he mentioned something.
He wrote about this strange occurrence near the Bells neighborhood. A young woman who was apparently being pestered by a disembodied voice telling her to marry a certain neighbor. It was causing quite a stir, attracting visitors.
A voice and a young woman. Sounds familiar.
Exactly. It predates Ingram by over 70 years. While the details aren't identical to the Bell Witch story we know, historian David Britton has pointed out the parallels, the voice, the location, the time frame. It suggests something strange involving voices was happening there around that time.
Interesting. So maybe not total fabrication later on. What about newspapers?
There were articles in the 1850s, like in the Saturday Evening Post, though later traced possibly to other papers too. They talked about a Tennessee ghost involving Betsy Bell and Joshua Gardner, her ex-fiancé.
Did they say what caused it?
One theory floated even back then was ventriloquism, a rational explanation attempt.
Ventriloquism, for all that activity.
Seems unlikely to cover everything, but it shows people were trying to figure it out. Ingram's book also mentions an earlier supposed Post article, around 1849, that apparently flat out accused Betsy of faking the whole thing.
Whoa. What happened with that?
According to Ingram, the Bell family threatened a libel suit, and the paper retracted it, basically saying Betsy was too young when it started to have orchestrated it all. So even back then, there were accusations and defenses flying around.
It just gets murkier, doesn't it? And it even ended up in court.
No way, yeah. There was a murder trial in 1868, Clenard and Burgess. The victim in that case had claimed to have witchcraft powers that came from the Bell Witch.
Seriously?
Yeah. And the defense actually brought it up. They had Lucinda Rawls, who was a friend of Betsy Bell, testify. She basically said, look, everyone around here knew the Bell Witch was real, and even mentioned another earlier murder blamed on witchcraft beliefs tied to the legend.
That's incredible. It shows how deeply ingrained the story was in the local culture. It wasn't just a story. It was treated as fact, almost.
It had real-world consequences and shaped how people understood unusual events, even crime.
Did things quiet down after the 1828 return, or did weird stuff keep happening in the area?
Oh, reports continued. In 1880, there was a haunted house case in nearby Springfield, Tennessee, knocking sounds, disturbances, and people immediately said, it's like the Bell Witch.
So the Bell Witch became the go-to explanation.
Pretty much. That specific 1880 case, though, was apparently linked to some domestic problems in the family living there. Suggests maybe other factors could be at play in some hauntings.
Also in 1880, the Nashville Centennial Exposition, there was an account presented there.
Yes, and it added some juicy details we touched on earlier, like the poison vial found by John Bell's bed.
Right.
And this account also claimed the witch could shapeshift into animals, and that it wasn't just one spirit, but one of 7 spirits, with names like Tanaperty and Black Dog.
7 spirits. Tanaperty. Okay, now it's getting really elaborate.
Yeah, see how the legend grows. New elements get added over time, making it even more fantastical, shape-shifting, multiple entities. It expands the mythology.
Was it mentioned in any formal histories around then?
Goodspeed's History of Tennessee from 1886 includes a short section on it, calls it a female spirit, notes the widespread interest it caused, how it annoyed the Bells, and that no one could really explain it rationally back then.
So it was significant enough to make it into a state history book.
Which lends it a certain weight, historically speaking, even if Goodspeed didn't offer much new detail.
And things kept happening even later, into the 1890s.
Yep. Reports from Hopkinsville, Kentucky, just over the state line, of coal mysteriously falling inside houses. And near Adams Station, back in the Bell Witch heartland, stories of women briefly vanishing and reappearing, sacks of corn floating, unseen things pushing people.
And they called it the witch.
Just the witch, yeah. By then, the name was synonymous with any weird, unexplained event in that area. It became a catch-all term.
Wow. Okay, before we move off the historical accounts, we have to talk about Andrew Jackson. Did he really visit the Bell Farm?
Ah, the Jackson story. It's one of those famous parts of the legend, mostly thanks to Ingram's book.
What's the story?
Ingram claims Jackson, maybe before he was president, was traveling near the Bell farm and heard about the haunting. He decided to check it out with his entourage.
Okay.
On the way, their wagon supposedly got stuck. Couldn't move, wheels wouldn't turn. Then, one of Jackson's men, a supposed witch slayer, starts boasting he can handle the spirit. And Kate supposedly attacked him viciously, unseen, humiliating him. Then a voice says Jackson can proceed. The witch just wanted to show it could stop his party. Jackson supposedly said he'd rather fight the entire British army than face the Bell Witch again.
It's a great story, but is it true?
Highly unlikely. There's just no other evidence for it. Nothing in Jackson's extensive records, nothing from his contemporaries. Most historians view it as folklore, probably added later to make the Bell Witch seem even more powerful by tangling with a figure like Old Hickory.
Adds drama, for sure. So the legend kept going, even into the 20th century.
Absolutely. There were prophecies about Kate returning again in 1903, then 1935. A Bell descendant, Charles Bailey Bell, wrote a book in 1934 compiling later family stories and alleged reappearances.
And the Bell Witch Cave became a thing?
Yeah, the cave on the old Bell property became, and still is, a focal point. People report strange noises, seeing figures there. There are modern anecdotes, too, like an antique rocking chair moving by itself, people having weird experiences in the cave, soldiers encountering something strange nearby, journalists spending the night.
So it's still an active legend tied to that physical place.
Very much so. It's transitioned from historical account to active folklore and tourist attraction, with new stories constantly being added. Blurs the line between past and present.
Okay, so we've laid out the story, the history, the folklore, but what about the skeptics? Not everyone buys the supernatural explanation.
Not at all. And it's crucial to look at those perspectives. Ben Radford, a well-known skeptical investigator, makes the point that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. The burden of proof is on those claiming it's a ghost, and you have to check your sources rigorously. Legends can easily be mistaken for fact.
Makes sense. What about others?
Brian Dunning from the Skeptoid podcast is even more critical. He basically argues that the whole story is built on shaky foundations. He thinks key facts were likely falsified over time, the main sources like Ingram are unreliable, and it's mostly just embellished folklore, possibly cooked up by Ingram himself.
So maybe just a good campfire story that got out of hand.
That's Dunning's take, essentially. That there's nothing really there worth investigating as a genuine paranormal event. It's more about how stories evolve and get exaggerated.
And Joe Nickell, he's another prominent investigator.
Nickell focuses more on Betsy Bell. He suggests she might have been the source of the phenomena, perhaps through deliberate trickery or maybe unconsciously. He links it to what's sometimes called poltergeist faking syndrome.
What's that?
It's the idea that sometimes, particularly adolescents under stress, might consciously or unconsciously create disturbances, throwing things, making noises that then get blamed on a ghost. He sees parallels between Betsy's situation and other suspected cases.
So maybe psychological stress manifesting physically or outright fraud.
Those are the main skeptical lines of thought, yeah. Natural explanations, faulty sources, or deliberate deception. They're important counterpoints to the ghost story narrative.
But regardless of whether you think Kate was real, a hoax, or something else entirely, the impact the story has had is undeniable, right?
Oh, absolutely huge. Culturally, the Bell Witch is massive. Think about films. The Blair Witch Project owes a huge debt to it. The whole found footage, unseen entity vibe.
And paranormal activity too, probably. The domestic haunting.
Definitely. And there was an American Haunting, which is directly based on the Bell Witch story. Its influence is all over horror cinema.
What about TV?
Tons of paranormal investigation shows have covered it. Ghost Adventures, Haunted Live, Expedition X. There have been documentaries, series like Cursed, The Bell Witch. It's a staple of the genre.
Music too.
Yep. There's a cantata by Charles Faulkner Bryan. The metal band Merciful Fate has a song about it. There's even a doom metal band, actually, named Bell Witch. Merle Kilgore wrote a song. Ballets, plays. It pops up everywhere.
It's really permeated popular culture. And of course, numerous books analyzing it from every angle.
It just keeps fascinating people.
Well, we've definitely gone deep today. We've traced the Bell Witch legend from those first odd sightings on the farm.
Through the terrifying escalation, the talking spirit, the interactions, the death of John Bell.
The documentation, the skepticism, the alleged return, and its incredible staying power in folklore and pop culture.
It's a complex tapestry, woven from history, folklore, personal accounts, and maybe some imagination, too.
Hopefully, diving into all these sources has given you a much clearer picture of this really famous American ghost story, hitting the key moments and the different ways people have tried to understand it. You can definitely see why it's stuck around for so long.
It has all the elements, doesn't it?
Hmm.
Fear, mystery, family drama, the
Yeah.
unexplained.
It really does. And thinking about it all, the history, the folklore, the fact we're still talking about it today, it makes you wonder, doesn't it? What does the enduring power of a story like The Bell Witch say about us? About maybe a need to believe in something beyond what we can see and touch? And how do these tales shape how we look back at the past and how we think about the mysteries that, well, that still feel mysterious?